Everyone, I'm Warren Jackson. I'm a technical marketing engineer in our Edge business unit. And today I'm going to be doing a walkthrough of installation of a 5G customer kit in the Gateway 3200. This 5G customer kit enables mobile connectivity to public cellular networks independent of wired or wireless networks in a customer facility. Dell has invested heavily in carrier and agency certifications, allowing our customers going straight to implementation. Connectivity on the device is managed by the operating system on the device itself, and the customers will procure SIMs of their choice to install in a device that are not included in the customer kit. So let's proceed to the next step, which is unboxing of the kit itself. Dell SKU for this customer kit is 555BIDR, and we'll go through the contents of the kit and unboxing right now. So when you open the kit, you'll notice the cellular antennas. 4 of them come with the kit, and then there's a bracket for the radio. There are miscellaneous screws for the installation. There's a replacement sink pad. There's a heat sink for the radio. There's a large metal heat sink that connects to the chassis of the box. There's SMA cables to facilitate the connection of the radio to the antennas. A regulatory label that goes on the outside of the box when you're finished. And then the radio itself is a M.2 card that gets installed in the box. On the outside of it, you'll see it'll say Centurion MV31 is the manufacturer's part number. Installation of the kit, you only need 3 tools: Phillips head screwdriver, 5/16 nut driver, and needle nose pliers. First step is to remove the back panel on the Gateway 3200. The back panel is the panel that has the labels Antenna 1 and Antenna 2 on it. And there are 4 Phillips head screws that you need to remove. Okay, step 2 is going to be to remove the top cover that has the heat sink on it. And to remove that, it's 4 Phillips head screws. Next step is to actually remove the back panel. You'll be able to see the inside of the device, and then you can actually remove the top panel of the device. This top panel will have a tendency to stick, and a trick to get it off is to actually tap the heatsink lightly to loosen it. And then the top cover is removed. The next step is to remove the 2 power cables that are holding the front lid to the base unit. One of them has a small white connector here, and the other has a larger black connector that attaches to the motherboard. the next step is to remove the black hole covers that are plugging the antenna connectors. There's 4 altogether: antenna 3, antenna 4, antenna 5, and antenna 6. And you can push these out with a pair of needle nose pliers. So now there are empty spots in antenna 3, 4, 5, and 6. Next step is to install the SMA cables in those open holes that we just opened up in the chassis. There's 4 SMA cables altogether, and they are color-coded white, red, yellow, and no color. And you'll see there's a black little cover on each one of these SMA connectors. You can remove those and dispose of them.
Again, just remember the audience is seeing the overhead shot for this kind of stuff.
So you'll notice that it's very difficult to see, but you have to turn the SMA connector in the proper orientation. There's a flat spot on the SMA connector that corresponds to a flat spot on the hole in the chassis itself. So that in order to insert the SMA connector from the inside of the chassis to the outside, it's keyed with that flat spot. So you have to make sure it's in the proper orientation. So before you attempt to insert it, you have to take the nut off. And the washer. There's 2 washers. One goes on the inside, one goes on the outside. So once you determine the proper orientation, the flat spot, put one of the washers on the SMA connector, put it in the proper orientation, and it should slide right in to the hole. And then once you have it inserted in the hole, put the washer on the outside, and then thread the nut onto the SMA connector. And since it's keyed, it prevents the SMA connector from spinning in the hole. This is where you use your 5/16 nut driver to tighten that nut down. And we have our first SMA connector installed, and you proceed and do that same process for antennas 4, 5, and 6. The next step is going to be actually to install the SMA connectors on the radio. And this is by far the trickiest part of the install, as the SMA connectors are very small and they actually have to snap into place on the radio itself. And they have to also go in a certain order on the radio itself. So one trick that I learned in installing these is that if you orient it properly on top of the card and kind of twist and use your thumb and forefinger to press and twist, it'll snap and click right into place. So what you want to listen for is that audible click. And once it's attached, it will not remove, and you could actually rotate it in place like this. So the next one is antenna on the one connector on the radio itself goes into antenna 5 on the gateway. So when you're finished, you'll see all the cables will rotate on the connectors themselves, and you can hold the M.2 card like that. The next step is to install the large heatsink just below the M.2 slot in the gateway chassis. The large heatsink is probably 1/2 inch thick, and it's got double sticky tape on each side of it. So you remove one side of the double stick tape, and the M.2 slot is right here inside the gateway. Just make sure there's no cable interference. And just place it right on the main motherboard. And then at this point, you can remove the other side of the double sticky tape. And insert the radio into the M.2 slot. Next step is to install the bracket that holds the radio down inside the chassis. The bracket looks like this. And you'll notice one side of the bracket is a through hole and the other side of the bracket is threaded. You want to put the side of the bracket with the through hole on the standoff inside the chassis. That's where it's going to attach. And the lower side, the threaded side, should line up with the radio itself. In the bag of small screws, you'll notice there's a few different size screws. So it's important to use the appropriate size screw for each step in the process. So to attach the bracket to the standoff that's in there, use this small standoff, and it goes in the non-threaded hole. And once you get it started, you can use your needle nose pliers to tighten it. So at this point, we have the radio installed in the M.2 slot. We have the bracket installed with the standoff. The next screw that you're going to use to actually attach the M.2 card to the bracket is the small short screw. Phillips head. So now the radio is secured in place on the bracket with that short screw. The next step is to attach the large metal heatsink, which will actually be mounted to the chassis. You can see there's double sticky tape at different points on this metal heatsink. So you remove one side of the double stick. It's important with this heatsink to have the proper alignment and also not to pinch cables. So you want to route these ribbon cables in the opening that's on the heatsink. And you can see there's attachment screw holes, 2 of them here and 1 of them on the standoff that you just installed. And make sure that those screw holes line up and then push down on the conductive thermal tape. So the 2 longer screws go in these 2 holes right here on the side of the chassis, and the shorter screw attaches to the standoff. So at this point, the card is fully installed, and now the process is to reassemble the chassis. First step being to take the cover that we removed before and reattach the power cables. The white connector first, and then the black connector second. You can rest the cover on top of the chassis. And then when you actually go to insert the screws, make sure none of the cables on the inside are getting pinched. And then finally, reattach the back cover again, making sure that none of the cables on the inside get pinched. The next step is to attach the paddle antennas to the SMA connectors that we've installed. And you want to have the paddles oriented upwards once they're installed. Final step is to install the regulatory label. Gets installed on the back panel next to the barcodes for the service tag. And that's it. You've successfully installed the 5G customer kit in the Gateway 3200. The next step that you'll have to perform is to remove the SIM cover from the device and insert the SIM of your choice with the carrier, and then power up the box and use the operating system to enable the cellular connection. Thanks for watching today.